You are about to discover the flow state of wealth, where money is not chased but drawn toward you by the force of your inner alignment. Within these teachings lies the secret money current and the art of transforming energy into momentum. As you listen, you'll realize that wealth begins to flow the moment you shift from effort to resonance. The flow state of wealth. You didn't arrive here by accident. Certain pages find certain souls. If this book found you, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. I'm giving away a free physical copy of this book, packed with ancient wisdom and timeless insight. The details are in the pinned comment, so don't forget to check it out. Introduction. Your relationship with wealth begins as a profound shift in perspective. Like a river seeking its natural course, abundance follows established pathways. Yet, unlike physical waterways, these channels are energetic constructs shaped by your beliefs, actions, and the systems you create. Consider Maria, a talented designer who struggled for years with feast or famine income. She approached wealth as something to chase, burning herself out in the pursuit. Through understanding the threefold alignment, she discovered that wealth wasn't a destination, but a flow she could learn to direct. First, she addressed her inner field, the deep-seated beliefs about money formed in childhood. Through daily meditation and journaling, she uncovered how her father's bankruptcy had created an unconscious pattern of pushing away success just as it approached. By working with this awareness, she began releasing these old stories. In the systems field, she established clear structures. Instead of working harder, she built scalable processes, templates for client onboarding, automated follow-ups, and strategic partnerships. These microsystems began working for her even when she wasn't actively pushing. The signal field required the most subtle shift. Rather than desperately broadcasting need, she learned to attune herself to opportunities aligned with her values. She created weekly rituals of reviewing her work, celebrating wins, and setting clear intentions. She began sharing her expertise freely, trusting that value given would return multiplied. Within months, Maria noticed subtle shifts. Client referrals increased naturally. Her income stabilized and grew. Most importantly, it felt effortless, like she had finally found the right groove for abundance to flow through. This transformation wasn't magic, it was methodical. Each day she practiced small calibrations. Each week she refined her systems. Each month she reviewed and adjusted her signals. The evidence of change built gradually but undeniably, dissolving her skepticism through direct experience. Your path to abundance awaits similar alignment. Through practical mysticism, ancient wisdom applied with modern precision, you'll learn to shape the channels through which wealth naturally flows. Part 1. Awakening to the Money Current. Chapter 1. The River Beneath Your Feet. The patterns of abundance reveal themselves first in the most ordinary places. Consider Walter, a longshoreman at the bustling port of Oakland. For 15 years, he chased every available shift, racing between terminals, exhausting himself for sporadic paydays. His income fluctuated wildly, creating constant stress for his family. One morning, feeling particularly worn down, Walter decided to simply observe rather than immediately jumping at the first opportunity. From his quiet vantage point, he noticed something remarkable. Every Thursday, without fail, 3 ships from Asia arrived carrying electronics. These ships always needed experienced handlers, and the pay was premium. Instead of scrambling for random assignments, Walter positioned himself specifically for these Thursday shipments. Within weeks, his income stabilized. Within months, the shipping companies began requesting him by name. What changed wasn't the port's activity, it was Walter's perception. This same principle manifested differently for Esther, a piano teacher in suburban Minnesota. For years, she struggled to fill her weekday afternoon slots while constantly turning down weekend requests. She saw these weekend inquiries as interruptions rather than signals. But when she finally paused to examine the pattern, she recognized an untapped current of demand. Esther restructured her schedule, dedicating Saturdays to group lessons. The transformation was immediate. Her weekend sessions filled instantly, creating a reliable income stream that actually exceeded her weekday earnings. The abundance hadn't appeared out of nowhere. It had been flowing past her all along, waiting to be noticed. These stories illuminate a fundamental truth. Wealth doesn't need to be created or chased. It needs to be recognized. The current of abundance is already moving through your life, carrying opportunities, resources, and connections. But like Walter and Esther, you must first still yourself enough to observe its patterns. Look at your own life. Where do you repeatedly turn down opportunities because they don't match your expectations? What small, consistent sources of value do you overlook while chasing larger, unpredictable ones? The signs are everywhere. In the colleague who regularly asks for your advice, in the skill people consistently compliment, in the timing patterns of your best clients. Begin with this simple practice. For the next 3 days, maintain a receipts and signs log. Document every instance of income, no matter how small. Note every referral, even if it seems insignificant. Record every aligned idea or opportunity that crosses your path. Each morning, speak these words aloud. I notice the current. This isn't about manifesting something new. It's about developing the vision to see what's already flowing. Chapter 2. The Ancient Gate of Receiving. Harold Mitchell had spent 38 years delivering mail in the same Denver neighborhood. Even 3 years into retirement, he still walked those familiar streets, now as a volunteer helping elderly neighbors with their gardens. But one habit remained unchanged: his absolute refusal to accept anything in return. "Just doing what's right," he'd say, backing away from offered cookies, garden vegetables, or small bills. His hands would rise in reflexive defense, palms out, as if warding off something dangerous rather than receiving gratitude. The neighborhood knew him as the man who gave everything and accepted nothing. One autumn morning, Mrs. Chen, an 84-year-old resident, caught him as he finished pruning her rose bushes. "Harold," she said firmly, holding out a container of dumplings, "my grandson is a therapist, and he says refusing gifts is like damming a river. It doesn't just stop the flow to you, it blocks it for everyone else too." This wisdom parallels the experience of Mabel Torres, who owned a struggling cafe in Portland. For years, she deflected every compliment about her cooking, dismissed offers of help, and insisted on handling everything alone. Her cafe stayed barely afloat, with customers sensing an invisible barrier between themselves and the establishment. Everything shifted when a business coach challenged Mabel to practice receiving. She started small, accepting compliments with a genuine "thank you," allowing a regular customer to fix a wobbly table, receiving a local artist's offer to paint a mural. Within months, her cafe transformed. Customers lingered longer, tipped more generously, and brought friends. The simple act of accepting had created an energetic invitation for abundance to flow. The relationship between receiving and abundance operates on a profound energetic level. When we consistently refuse help, compliments, or compensation, we signal to the universe that we're closed to its gifts. This closure affects not just material wealth, but all forms of abundance, opportunities, connections, and support. To retrain your nervous system to receive, start with these permission rituals. When someone offers help or appreciation, pause. Take a breath. Notice the instinct to refuse, but don't act on it. Instead, make eye contact and say, "Thank you, I appreciate that." Let the words land fully. Create clear boundaries that allow you to accept without shame. Recognize that receiving isn't taking. It's participating in a natural exchange that honors both giver and receiver. The 7-day acceptance experiment begins now. Each day, consciously accept one genuine offer or compliment. Document not just what you received, but how it felt in your body, what stories arose in your mind, and what opportunities or connections emerged afterward. Notice how your capacity to receive expands with practice, and watch as the current of abundance finds an increasingly welcome channel in your life. Chapter 3: The Echo of Your Inner Worth. Clarence Morgan wiped his hands on the shop rag, staring at the gleaming Mercedes he'd just restored to perfect running condition. The repair had taken him 3 days of meticulous work, yet he was about to charge less than half the market rate. "Just trying to help folks out," he'd tell his wife when she questioned his pricing. But the truth ran deeper. Somewhere inside, Clarence couldn't quite believe his work deserved premium rates, despite being one of the most skilled mechanics in Durham. Each evening he'd watch luxury cars drive away while his own bills piled up. His expertise could command triple what he charged, but an inner voice, one that had followed him since childhood, whispered that asking for more would drive customers away. This pattern of undervaluing extended beyond his pricing. In conversations with clients, Clarence would minimize his decades of experience, describing complex repairs as just basic maintenance. His shoulders would hunch slightly when discussing fees, his voice dropping to a near mumble. Across town, Beatrice Chen faced a similar challenge in her alterations business. For years, she'd charged bargain prices for her exquisite work, attracting clients who haggled over every dollar. One day, after a particularly difficult customer demanded a rush job at a discount, Beatrice made a decision. She raised her prices by 30% and began presenting her work with quiet pride, describing the artistry involved in each alteration. To her surprise, the complainers disappeared, replaced by clients who appreciated quality and respected her time. These new customers didn't just pay higher rates. They referred others, transforming her business from a struggle to a success. The connection between inner worth and outer value manifests in countless subtle ways. When we doubt our value, it shows in our posture, tone, and pricing. Each undercharged service reinforces a story of unworthiness, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. Breaking this cycle requires more than simply raising prices. It demands a fundamental shift in self-address. The language we use when speaking to ourselves about money creates the template for how we present our value to the world. The practice begins with renaming 3 limiting money beliefs into evidence-backed truths. For example, "I can't charge that much" becomes, "My expertise creates lasting value worth investment." "People won't pay more" transforms to, "The right clients appreciate quality and fair pricing." "I should help everyone" shifts to, "Setting sustainable rates allows me to serve effectively." Choose one price or boundary that feels misaligned with your true value. Perhaps it's your hourly rate, a service fee, or a time boundary you've been reluctant to set. This week, adjust that single element to match your renamed truth. Notice how this shift affects not just your income, but your presence and the quality of your client interactions. Chapter 4: The First Shift of Sight. Milton Chen stared at the interface mock-up on his screen, his cartographer's instincts tingling. After 15 years of making maps, he'd transitioned to UX design, but something felt off about how he approached client work. He kept creating beautiful, complex solutions while simpler projects passed him by. One afternoon, while organizing his portfolio, Milton noticed a pattern. His most successful projects weren't the technically impressive ones. They were the ones where he'd translated complex systems into simple visual languages. Just as his old maps had made terrain accessible to hikers, his best UX work made digital landscapes navigable for users. He began viewing the market differently, not as a competition for high-profile clients, but as terrain with hidden valleys of opportunity. Instead of chasing trending projects, he started mapping user frustrations. He discovered a neglected niche, small business owners who needed simplified versions of enterprise-level systems. By shifting his perspective, Milton uncovered an audience hiding in plain sight. He developed streamlined templates that brought enterprise-quality UX to smaller companies, creating a steady stream of work that better matched his skill set. Across the country, Agnes Rodriguez faced a similar revelation in her copy editing business. For years, she'd chased one-off projects until she noticed something peculiar about her academic clients. They didn't just need error-free text. They needed consistent guidance on writing style. Instead of continuing with project-based editing, Agnes created a subscription service offering monthly writing reviews and style guides. This perceptual shift transformed sporadic income into predictable revenue while providing more value to her clients. The key to both Milton and Agnes's transformations lay not in learning new skills, but in seeing differently. They developed what masters call opportunity sight, the ability to perceive value where others see only obstacles or emptiness. This sight can be cultivated through 3 specific practices. Sensory rehearsal: spend 10 minutes daily imagining your service from your ideal client's perspective. What frustrations do they face? What relief do they seek? Market remapping: draw your market landscape not by competitors, but by unmet needs. Where are the gaps between what's offered and what's needed? Language reframes: listen to how potential clients describe their challenges. Their exact words often reveal opportunities hidden by industry jargon. The weekly reconnaissance practice synthesizes these elements into a practical routine. Listen, document conversations, complaints, and requests in your field, noting exact phrases and recurring themes. Map: plot these signals on your opportunity landscape, looking for patterns and underserved areas. Propose: design one small offer based on what you've heard, testing it with a minimal viable solution. This practice keeps you attuned to evolving needs while building evidence of where true demand lies. Chapter 5: The Thirsty Traveler: Urgency versus Trust. Leroy gripped his steering wheel, eyes darting between the road and his rideshare app. Every ping sent his heart racing. Another fare, another chance to make up for last week's shortfall. He accepted everything, driving 16-hour days, taking the problematic passengers other drivers avoided. The money came fast, but left faster, burned away by maintenance costs and exhaustion-induced mistakes. One night, after his 3rd coffee and 10th consecutive hour, Leroy nearly dozed at a stoplight. The close call forced him to pull over and really look at his situation. His desperate chase for quick cash had left him running on fumes, both literally and figuratively. Across town, Ethel Thompson took a different approach to building sustainable income. When the community garden program offered plots for lease, many rushed to plant quick-yield vegetables. Ethel, drawing on her grandmother's wisdom, devoted half her space to perennials, berry bushes, herb gardens, and fruit trees. While others harvested quick crops and struggled with seasonal gaps, she built a system that yielded consistently year after year. The first season was modest, but Ethel understood the power of patience. She sold small batches of herbs while her berries established themselves. By year 3, her plot produced reliable income from multiple sources: fresh herbs in spring, berries in summer, preserved goods in winter. Her patience had created a self-sustaining cycle that required less effort over time. The contrast between Leroy and Ethel illuminates a fundamental truth about sustainable abundance. Urgency creates resistance, while steady expectancy opens channels. When we grasp at money from fear, we often repel the very flow we seek to capture. This principle translates into practical strategies for transforming anxious urgency into calm leverage. Timeline reframes. For every financial goal, extend the timeline by 30%. This creates space for systematic rather than reactive approaches. Micro-boundaries. Set small, firm limits that protect your energy and resources. A well-rested provider attracts more abundance than an exhausted hustler. Pacing protocols. Establish regular intervals for financial decisions rather than making them under pressure. This might mean reviewing opportunities weekly rather than jumping at each one. The 7-day patience trial brings these concepts into daily practice. When money anxiety triggers an urgent impulse to act, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, what one small, steady action would serve my long-term financial well-being? Record both the impulse and your chosen action in a simple log. Note how each measured response affects your energy and results. This practice doesn't just build patience, it develops trust in the natural rhythm of abundance. Like Ethel's garden, sustainable wealth grows through consistent, well-timed actions rather than frantic effort. Chapter 6. The Signature of Your Vibration. Irving Martinez stood behind his barber chair, surveying his shop with fresh eyes. For years he'd run a decent business, but something wasn't clicking. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, sports radio blared, and a jumble of outdated magazines cluttered the waiting area. His regular customers came and went, but few new faces stayed. One morning, inspired by a visit to his daughter's yoga studio, Irving made subtle changes. He replaced the harsh lighting with warm lamps, switched the radio to classical jazz, and cleared the clutter. Most importantly, he shifted his approach from rushing through cuts to creating an experience. He began each session by asking clients about their style preferences, offering hot towels, and providing thoughtful grooming advice. Within months, his return client rate doubled. The same hands cut the same hair, but the atmosphere told a different story. People don't just come for a haircut anymore, Irving realized. They come for how the place makes them feel. Across town, Hazel Chen faced a similar revelation with her small bakery. Despite her exceptional pastries, sales remained modest. The store's budget prices and pop music soundtracks sent mixed signals that confused potential customers. After studying successful cafes, Hazel made deliberate adjustments. She curated a playlist of subtle instrumental music, refined her packaging, and aligned her prices with the quality of her artisanal products. The changes transformed her business. Morning lines began forming as professionals sought out her precisely crafted croissants. "I didn't change my recipes," Hazel noted. "I changed the story my shop was telling." These experiences reveal a fundamental truth. Money responds to coherent signals. Every element of a business, from ambient sounds to pricing structure, broadcasts a message that either attracts or repels prosperity. This principle extends beyond retail spaces to any venture or career. The 3-point signal audit provides a framework for evaluation. Voice. The language patterns used in all communications, from casual conversations to formal presentations, must align with intended value. Space. Every environment, whether physical or digital, should reflect the quality of service offered. Offerings. Products, services, and prices need to tell a consistent story about worth and expertise. To maintain signal coherence, a morning calibration routine proves essential. This 5-minute practice aligns posture, language, and visual elements before beginning each day. First, stand in a position that embodies success and confidence. Next, select and speak aloud 3 phrases that reflect your professional value. Finally, ensure one visible element in your workspace reinforces your intended message. The 7-day calibration practice creates an opportunity to test this principle. Each morning, spend 5 minutes tuning these 3 elements: physical posture, chosen phrases, and visual cues. Note how people respond differently when your signals align. This simple routine often catalyzes subtle but significant shifts in professional interactions and opportunities. Chapter 7. The Law of Open Channels. Otis Henderson stood in his hardware store's back office, surrounded by towers of invoices and unopened mail. 23 years of running Henderson's hardware had taught him every aspect of the business except one: facing the numbers. Each month, he'd stuff another batch of bills into already bulging folders, letting the weight of obligations grow heavier. But it wasn't just the paperwork that clogged his business flow. There was Bob, his former supplier, who'd shorted him on a major order 3 years ago. Otis had switched vendors but kept the bitterness alive, sharing the story with anyone who'd listen. And Sarah, his accountant sister-in-law, whose offers to help he'd repeatedly rejected after a family disagreement. The breaking point came when his most reliable supplier put him on credit hold. Facing the possibility of empty shelves, Otis finally confronted his financial clutter. He started with basic triage, sorting bills into urgent and non-urgent piles, making immediate payment arrangements for critical vendors. Next came the physical decluttering, shredding outdated catalogs and organizing current invoices into a simple filing system. The hardest part was addressing the emotional blockages. He called Bob, acknowledged his part in their falling out, and negotiated a small outstanding balance. He reached out to Sarah, swallowing his pride to accept her expertise. Each resolution felt like unclogging a pipe, allowing resources to flow more freely. Across town, Lucille Martinez's story echoed similar themes. After her first interior design business collapsed under complicated payment terms and unpaid invoices, she spent 6 months clearing the debris. She contacted every creditor, created manageable payment plans, and released her anger toward clients who disappeared without paying. When Lucille relaunched her business, she implemented clear, simple payment structures: 50% deposit, remainder on completion, no exceptions. She also maintained a monthly clearing day for administrative and emotional maintenance. The result? A steady stream of repeat clients and referrals, with cash flow as smooth as her design aesthetics. These stories demonstrate how financial stagnation often stems from clogged channels, both practical and emotional. The monthly maintenance checklist emerged: reconcile accounts, clear physical clutter, and release emotional blocks that restrict prosperity's flow. The 1-hour clearing session provides a practical starting point. First, select one filing area, a drawer, folder, or digital space, and sort it completely. Next, reconcile one account, tracking every dollar in and out. Finally, identify one relationship carrying financial or emotional weight, and take action to release it, whether through an apology, forgiveness, or conscious letting go. Document any shifts in energy, opportunities, or cash flow in the week following this clearing. Often, the simple act of creating space allows new possibilities to emerge, much like clearing a blocked stream allows water to flow naturally once again. Chapter 8. The Stillness Before the Stream. Rufus Mitchell discovered the power of silence quite by accident. After 15 years on the night shift at Metro General Hospital, the constant beeping of monitors and overhead pages had become white noise. But one evening, arriving early due to a transit mishap, he found himself alone in the break room with 20 minutes to spare. Instead of immediately checking his phone, he sat in complete stillness. The unexpected quiet felt almost uncomfortable at first, but as his mind settled, something shifted. In that brief window of silence, he noticed his usual rushed preparation created small inefficiencies throughout his shift. The insight led him to implement a simple change, arriving just 2 minutes early to sit in deliberate stillness before each shift. The results were remarkable. In these moments of quiet, patterns emerged that he'd missed in the usual rush. He realized certain supplies always ran low on Thursdays and began preemptively restocking. He noticed which patients needed extra attention at specific times, allowing him to optimize his rounds. These small adjustments born from silence saved hours of reactive scrambling and reduced supply waste by nearly 30%. Across town, Pearl Thompson's story reflected a similar truth. As a senior product designer at a tech startup, she'd hit a wall trying to solve a crucial user interface problem. After weeks of frustrated sketching and team meetings, the solution arrived during an unexpected moment of silence. Stuck in an elevator during a power outage, Pearl found herself in complete stillness for 7 minutes. As her mind quieted, the elegant solution she'd been forcing suddenly appeared with crystal clarity. The power of these quiet moments lies in their ability to tune us into subtle signals we normally miss. Like adjusting a radio dial between stations, silence allows us to hear the whispers of insight beneath the static of daily noise. This doesn't require hours of meditation or retreat from the world. Even micro moments of stillness, 2 minutes before important meetings, 30 seconds before making decisions, or 5 minutes of walking without phone or earbuds, can dramatically sharpen our receptivity to opportunity's quiet knock. The practice is simple but profound. Before any significant decision point in your day, pause for 2 minutes of complete silence. No phone, no planning, no problem solving. Simply allow your mind to settle like a snow globe after shaking. For 7 consecutive days, maintain this practice and record one insight or idea that emerges from these quiet intervals. You may be surprised to discover how many valuable signals have been waiting patiently for a moment of stillness to be heard. Chapter 9. The Doubt That Dams the Flow. Amos Fletcher stood behind the counter of his small bookstore, fingers hovering over the keyboard. For the 3rd time that month, he'd drafted an email announcing a new subscription service for local book deliveries. And for the 3rd time, his cursor hovered over the delete button as doubts flooded in. What if customers thought it was too expensive? What if he couldn't handle the delivery logistics? What if it damaged his reputation? The email joined its predecessors in the digital trash, and another potentially profitable idea died before birth. Amos had mastered the art of killing possibilities with what-ifs. His bookstore remained exactly as it had been for 15 years, stable but stagnating, while online retailers steadily eroded his customer base. The problem wasn't that Amos lacked good ideas. His instincts about customer needs were usually spot on. The problem was that each doubt bred more doubts until even the smallest step forward felt impossibly risky. He had transformed uncertainty, a natural part of any business evolution, into paralysis. Contrast this with Hattie Williams, who opened her first yoga studio with nothing but a borrowed space and 3 trial classes. Instead of letting doubt dictate her decisions, she turned each uncertainty into a question to be answered with data. Would people attend early morning classes? She tested one 6 a.m. session. Was there interest in prenatal yoga? She offered a single workshop. Could she charge premium rates? She introduced one higher-priced specialized class. Each small experiment provided clear feedback. Some ideas failed, but instead of seeing failure as confirmation of doubt, Hattie treated it as valuable data. When her prenatal workshop filled immediately, she expanded the offering. When the 6 a.m. class struggled, she adjusted the timing. Within 8 months, she had built a thriving schedule based not on guesswork, but on proven demand. The key difference between Amos and Hattie wasn't courage or capability. It was their relationship with uncertainty. Where Amos let doubt become a wall, Hattie used it as a compass pointing toward what needed testing. She understood that the antidote to what if isn't blind confidence, but small, controlled experiments that generate real evidence. The solution isn't to eliminate doubt, it's to transform it into data points. Every uncertainty contains a testable hypothesis. What if no one wants this becomes, let's offer it to 10 people and see. What if it's too expensive becomes, let's test 3 price points with small groups. What if I can't handle it becomes, let's try it at a manageable scale first. Your 3-day testing protocol. Day 1. Choose one small offer you've been hesitating to make. Test it with 5 people. Day 2. Place one small advertisement or announcement about your service where your ideal clients gather. Day 3. Make one specific ask for referrals, testimonials, or business to an existing contact. Record concrete responses, not interpretations. How many replied? What questions did they ask? What specifically did they say yes or no to? Use this evidence to refine your next step. Chapter 10. The First Activation. Bernard Matthews wiped flour from his hands and gazed at the golden loaves cooling on the rack. Among his usual assortment sat something different, a rustic sourdough made with locally milled rye and fresh herbs from his garden. He hadn't planned to make it a regular offering, but something about this particular recipe felt right. That afternoon, a customer bought the special loaf. The next day, she returned asking for 2 more. By week's end, Bernard had steady orders from local restaurants and families who'd heard about his Thursday herb loaf. What began as a single aligned action, creating something that truly expressed his craft, had opened an unexpected channel of abundance. The power lay not in the complexity of his action, but in its clarity and alignment. Bernard hadn't tried to revolutionize his entire business model or launch an aggressive marketing campaign. He simply offered one authentic creation and let it find its audience. Across town, Sylvia Chen faced a similar moment of alignment. After years of providing general administrative support, she finally posted a focused offering, specialized scheduling services for medical practices. She didn't create an elaborate business plan or wait for perfect conditions. Instead, she took one clear action that reflected her true expertise. Within days, a small clinic hired her, leading to a stable contract that eventually expanded to their entire medical group. Both Bernard and Sylvia demonstrated the 4-part activation sequence that underlies all sustainable flow. First, they clarified their desire. Bernard wanted to create bread that reflected his craftsmanship, while Sylvia sought to use her organizational skills meaningfully. Second, they allowed themselves to feel the outcome. Bernard could taste the perfect loaf before he baked it. Sylvia envisioned herself bringing order to chaotic medical schedules. Third, they took one luminous action, a single step so aligned with their intention that it carried an inner rightness. Bernard baked his special loaf. Sylvia posted her focused service offering. Finally, they registered the results without attachment. When positive responses came, they noted them simply and continued their aligned actions, letting the flow build naturally. For those seeking to activate their own channels of abundance, the formula remains the same. Start with a clear desire. Feel it as if it's already real. Take one aligned action, not 10 scattered efforts, but one step that rings true. Then observe what comes with neutral awareness. The practice. For the next 7 days, run this activation sequence. Choose one clear desire for abundance. Each morning, feel the reality of its fulfillment in your body. Take one aligned action, however small, before sunset. Each evening, record in your receiving log what came back: opportunities, conversations, unexpected support, or simple signs of movement. Let each day's evidence inform the next day's action, creating a feedback loop of increasing clarity and flow. Part 2. Deepening into the money current. Chapter 11. The Momentum Principle. Gilbert Chen stood in his small clock repair shop, surrounded by the gentle ticking of dozens of timepieces. Each morning at precisely 8 a.m., he would post one available repair slot for the following week on his shop's window. Never more, never less. just one consistent offering that locals could count on. What started as a simple scheduling system had evolved into something remarkable. His customers knew exactly when to check for openings, and the predictability created a steady stream of work. Some would stop by daily, watching for their chance to claim the next slot. Within 6 months, Gilbert's repair calendar stretched weeks ahead, built entirely through small daily actions. "The secret isn't in doing more," Gilbert explained to his apprentice. "It's in doing the same small thing with unwavering consistency." He demonstrated how each repair was logged in his ledger, each client contacted at the same intervals, each follow-up scheduled with clockwork precision. Across town, Margot Sullivan discovered a similar truth through different means. As a financial advisor, she had struggled to maintain a steady client base until she committed to writing one simple newsletter every Wednesday morning. The content wasn't revolutionary, just clear insights about personal finance delivered with reliability. The first month, only 12 people subscribed. But Margot kept writing, each week without fail. By month 3, subscribers began forwarding her newsletters to colleagues. At 6 months, local business owners started reaching out for consultations. After a year, she had a waiting list of clients who had come to trust her consistent presence in their inbox. The power lay not in the individual actions, but in their rhythmic accumulation. Like compound interest, each small deposit of effort built upon the last. Gilbert's daily posting created a reputation for reliability. Margot's weekly writings established her as a steady voice of expertise. Their successes revealed a fundamental truth about sustainable abundance. It responds not to sporadic bursts of effort, but to rhythmic, aligned action. Each small step, taken consistently, creates a groove that abundance naturally follows. The practice. For the next 7 days, establish your own momentum rhythm. Morning alignment, 8 a.m. Set one clear intention for the day's value creation. Midday pulse check, 1 p.m. Assess your energy and realign actions if needed. Evening receipts entry, 6 p.m. Record all forms of value received, opportunities, connections, insights, or income. This simple cadence, maintained daily, becomes the foundation of compound growth. Like Gilbert's repair slots and Margot's newsletters, your consistent rhythm will create a channel that abundance can reliably flow through. Keep your daily log focused on actual results rather than aspirations. Note patterns that emerge. Watch how small, aligned actions begin to attract matching opportunities. Let each day's evidence guide the next day's choices, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of clarity and growth. Chapter 12. The Unseen Garden, Invisible Growth. Stanley Martinez sat alone in his makeshift recording studio, speaking into the void. For 6 months, he had diligently produced 3 episodes per week about urban gardening, sharing his expertise to what seemed like an empty digital landscape. His download numbers barely registered, and comments were non-existent. Yet Stanley continued, refining his content and delivery with each episode. He organized his topics systematically, created detailed show notes, and methodically built a library of evergreen content. While others chased viral moments, he focused on depth and consistency. In month 7, something shifted. A popular gardening blog discovered his backlog of content and featured his episode about vertical farming. New listeners, finding a treasure trove of organized quality content, binged through his archive. Within weeks, his download numbers exploded and sponsorship offers began arriving. The growth appeared sudden to outsiders, but Stanley knew better. "Success doesn't happen when people notice," he explained. "It happens in those quiet months when you're building the foundation no one sees." Across the country, Lillian Hayes embodied a similar truth. A high school science teacher, she spent 2 years developing a comprehensive curriculum for advanced placement biology. While colleagues questioned her dedication to unpaid work, Lillian methodically created lesson plans, interactive modules, and assessment tools. When she finally released her curriculum on an educational resource platform, it spread rapidly through teacher networks. What looked like overnight success was actually the fruit of countless unseen hours of refinement and preparation. Both stories illuminate a critical truth about sustainable growth. The most powerful transformations begin in darkness, like seeds germinating beneath the soil. Success becomes visible only after extended periods of invisible development. The key lies in understanding and valuing leading indicators, those small signs that precede major breakthroughs. For Stanley, it was the gradual improvement in his delivery and the growing coherence of his content library. For Lillian, it was the positive feedback from test classes and the increasing refinement of her materials. Leading indicators provide evidence of progress long before external results manifest. They might include, these subtle shifts signal that your unseen work is taking root, even when traditional metrics show no change. The practice: design your 30-day incubation plan with these 3 daily actions. Conduct a weekly review noting. Record these in your incubation log, understanding that you're observing the underground growth that precedes visible success. Trust the process of invisible formation, knowing that, like Stanley's podcast and Lillian's curriculum, your consistent, unseen work is building toward inevitable emergence. Chapter 13. The Path of Energetic Cleanliness. Chester Thompson trudged through the empty halls of Millbrook High School each evening, pushing his cleaning cart with practiced precision. For 15 years he'd maintained these corridors spotless, but his own financial life remained in disarray. Unpaid bills stuffed in drawers, unreconciled accounts, and strained relationships with former clients from his failed consulting business. One evening, while organizing the chemistry lab's supply closet, Chester had an epiphany. The same principles he used to transform chaos into order could apply to his money matters. He began with small steps, 15 minutes each evening sorting papers, reconciling one account at a time, and creating clear systems for incoming bills. As his financial space grew clearer, Chester noticed his mind becoming sharper. He started reaching out to former consulting clients, offering genuine apologies for past miscommunications. With each conversation, the weight of old tensions lifted. Within months, 3 previous clients reached out about new projects, citing his renewed professionalism and organization. Across town, Dolores Martinez faced a similar situation at her graphic design studio. A misunderstanding with her biggest client 2 years ago had cost her significant business. The unresolved conflict weighed heavily, cluttering her ability to move forward. After months of hesitation, she finally composed a thoughtful email acknowledging her role in the miscommunication. The response surprised her. Not only did the client appreciate her honesty, but they also had a new project perfectly suited to her expertise. The mental space cleared by resolving that one relationship, Dolores reflected, created room for new opportunities to flow in. The practice of energetic cleansing requires 3 key components: financial triage, sorting and organizing monetary matters; relationship clearing, resolving tensions and misunderstandings; and workspace reset, creating physical order that supports mental clarity. To repair money relationships, use clear, humble language. I appreciate the opportunity to address our past miscommunication. I take responsibility for my part in what happened. I value our professional relationship and would welcome the chance to rebuild trust. The practice: commit to a 15-minute daily sweep of your financial space. Sort papers, reconcile one transaction, or organize one drawer. Each weekend, choose one money area for deep cleaning. Clear out old files, update financial software, or resolve one outstanding account issue. Maintain this practice for 1 month, noting how external order creates internal clarity. Chapter 14. The Three Doors of Allowing. Franklin Morris sat at his kitchen table, staring at the retirement account statement that showed far less than he'd hoped. After 30 years as a railway clerk, his careful planning hadn't yielded the comfort he'd expected. He noticed a pattern in his thinking. Whenever good fortune appeared, three invisible doors seemed to block its full arrival. The first door was belief. Though Franklin meticulously tracked train schedules for decades, he struggled to believe he deserved more than modest returns. One day, he began documenting small wins in a notebook: a refund received, an unexpected dividend, a successful negotiation with his phone carrier. Each proof, however minor, gradually shifted his belief that good things could happen for him. The second door was feeling. Franklin realized he couldn't receive what he couldn't emotionally accept. He started a simple practice. Whenever money arrived, he'd pause and let himself feel genuine appreciation rather than rushing to file it away. This conscious receiving began changing his relationship with abundance. The third door was reasonable expectation. Franklin had unconsciously set rigid timelines for financial goals, creating tension that blocked natural flow. When he relaxed his expectations and allowed different timelines to unfold, opportunities emerged from unexpected directions. Across town, Winifred Baker faced similar thresholds in her consulting practice. Her rates were fair, her expertise solid, but larger contracts seemed to evade her. Through careful self-observation, she identified that while she believed in her skills and could feel worthy of success, her expectations remained unnecessarily confined. She began expanding her timeline vision, allowing for possibilities beyond her usual 30-day projection. Within 2 months, a corporate client she'd contacted the previous year reached out with a 6-month contract, larger than anything she'd previously allowed herself to expect. The three doors require regular attention. To diagnose which door might be stuck, ask yourself: belief. Can I find evidence of similar successes in my life? Feeling. Can I physically sense myself receiving this good? Expectation. Am I allowing reasonable time and space for this to unfold? The practice. Each evening for 2 weeks, perform the three-door checklist. Through this consistent practice, you'll begin recognizing which doors need attention and develop the muscle memory for keeping them open to receive. Chapter 15. The Lighthouse Principle. Everett Chen stared at his cluttered website, advertising everything from basic math to advanced physics tutoring. His calendar was a mess of scattered sessions with students drifting in and out, never quite finding their rhythm. One evening, after another exhausting day of jumping between subjects, he had an insight. His best students, the ones who stayed longest and achieved the most, all shared a specific profile: high school students struggling with AP Physics. With this realization, Everett stripped away everything else. He rewrote his website to speak directly to these students, sharing specific examples of how he helped others overcome common physics challenges. His message became a steady beacon. I help overwhelmed AP Physics students build confidence and master concepts through personalized problem-solving sessions. Within weeks, his calendar began filling with exactly these students. His testimonials grew more focused, each one reinforcing his specialty. Like a lighthouse cutting through fog, his clear signal drew the right ships to shore. Across town, Matilda Rodriguez ran a virtual assistant business, offering 20 different services to anyone who might need them. Her clients seemed scattered, her work unfocused, and her energy depleted. Inspired by a business mentor, she decided to simplify dramatically. She chose to specialize in email management for independent real estate agents, creating one core offering: a comprehensive inbox organization system. At first, turning away other work felt terrifying, but as her message became clearer, I help real estate agents reclaim 2 hours daily through systematic email management, something shifted. Her client base not only doubled but became more consistent, with agents referring colleagues who faced similar challenges. The teaching reveals that abundance flows most freely toward clear signals. Like a radio tuning to the strongest frequency, money and opportunities naturally gravitate toward consistent, well-defined messages. The key lies not in broadcasting louder, but in maintaining steady clarity about who you serve and how you serve them. A weekly signal calendar ensures this clarity remains consistent. This rhythm, maintained steadily, acts like a lighthouse, guiding ideal opportunities to your shore. The power lies not in the individual signals, but in their unwavering consistency. The practice: craft your lighthouse statement using this template. I help specific people achieve specific outcome through specific method. Read it aloud each morning to align your own energy, and share it once weekly in a professional or social setting. Let this statement become your beacon, cutting through the noise and drawing your ideal opportunities closer. Chapter 16: The Golden Thread of Inspired Action. Harold Thompson sat at his workbench, carefully repairing a vintage suit when an unusual thought surfaced. For 20 years, he'd run his small tailoring shop, specializing in minor alterations and repairs. But that morning, a persistent idea kept needling him: to reach out to the local vintage clothing store 3 blocks away. The thought felt different from his usual worried musings about business. It carried a quiet certainty, like a thread waiting to be pulled. After finishing his current repair, Harold walked to Timeless Treasures, the vintage store he'd passed countless times but never entered. Inside, he found the owner struggling with a rack of damaged classic suits. A conversation began, and Harold mentioned his expertise in period-appropriate repairs. Within weeks, their partnership transformed both businesses. Harold became the store's exclusive restoration specialist, while the store provided a steady stream of high-value repairs. The key was recognizing the difference between anxiety-driven thoughts and true inspiration. Anxiety pushed from behind with urgency. Inspiration pulled forward with gentle persistence. Harold learned to distinguish between them by asking one simple question: does this thought bring clarity or confusion? Across town, Beulah Martinez kept hearing about a small theater company's costume difficulties. Though she typically avoided theater work, preferring her steady alteration business, something about this particular need resonated. The thought returned each morning with increasing clarity. Following this quiet prompt, she reached out with a simple email offering her services. That single action led to a reliable monthly contract maintaining the theater's costume collection, work that energized rather than depleted her. The teaching reveals that inspiration arrives as subtle nudges, not thunderbolts. These nudges often appear impractical to the logical mind, but carry an unmistakable resonance. The key lies in developing 3 practices. Recognition. Learn to distinguish between fear-based thoughts, which create tension, and inspired nudges, which bring expansion. Preparation. Create space for inspiration through daily silence, even 5 minutes of quiet attention before work. Recording. Keep an inspiration ledger tracking nudges received, actions taken, and outcomes observed. The practice. For the next 7 days, follow the 1 yes rule. When a genuine inner nudge appears, distinguished by its quiet persistence and clarity, take 1 small aligned action in response. Record each nudge, action, and result in a simple log. This builds evidence of inspiration's reliability while strengthening your capacity to recognize and act on authentic guidance. Chapter 17: The Two Merchants. Contrast of Attractor States. Clarence operated 2 flower stalls in the same market, just 30 feet apart. At his first stall, he projected calm expertise, maintaining organized displays and steady pricing. Here, he knew his worth and spoke with quiet authority about each bloom's care, Regular customers returned weekly, placing advance orders for special occasions. At his second stall, experimental anxiety drove his decisions. He constantly changed prices, second-guessed arrangements, and spoke with nervous energy about his selections. Despite selling identical flowers, this stall attracted haggling and one-time purchases. The difference wasn't in the products, but in Clarence's internal state at each location. His first stall embodied certainty, consistent hours, reliable quality, and transparent policies. His second stall broadcast doubt through fluctuating prices and hesitant recommendations. The market simply mirrored his inner stance. Where he projected stability, customers responded with trust. Where he wavered, they sensed uncertainty and acted accordingly. Across town, Gertrude faced a similar lesson in her virtual assistance business. After losing several clients due to missed deadlines, she recognized her scattered approach undermined trust. Instead of promising comprehensive services, she narrowed her focus to email management. She set clear boundaries, 3 clients maximum, specific working hours, and defined response times. Each week she delivered exactly what she promised. No more, no less. She posted weekly accountability updates, sharing completion rates and response times. Within 2 months, her reputation shifted. Former clients returned, referrals increased, and she could charge premium rates for her reliability. The teaching reveals 3 core elements of trust building. First, micro-commitments create evidence of reliability. Start with small, visible promises you can consistently keep. Each fulfilled commitment becomes a trust deposit. Second, competence projects demonstrate expertise publicly. Document your process, share results, and maintain transparent standards. Let your work speak through clear metrics and outcomes. Third, reputation rituals maintain trust momentum. Regular client updates, public accountability, and consistent delivery schedules form the backbone of professional credibility. The practice: choose one small public commitment for the next 7 days. Perhaps it's posting a daily market update at exactly 9 a.m. or responding to all inquiries within 2 hours during business hours. Make this commitment visible, fulfill it precisely, and document both your consistency and the market's response. Watch how keeping one small promise ripples into increased trust and opportunities. Chapter 18: The Currency of Emotion. Mabel's salon sat between a bustling coffee shop and a high-end boutique, yet it wasn't location that transformed her business. It was her deliberate cultivation of emotion. She noticed that when clients left feeling not just styled but genuinely uplifted, they tipped generously and returned with friends. She began treating emotion as her primary product. Beyond technical excellence, she engineered every touch point for emotional resonance. The lighting was adjusted to flatter and soothe. Music shifted throughout the day to match clients' energy. Most importantly, she trained herself and her staff to maintain a consistent mood of warm confidence. Within 3 months, tips increased by 40%. Referrals doubled. Clients began booking their next appointment before leaving, citing the salon's amazing energy as their reason for loyalty. The deeper lesson emerged: in any transaction, emotion is the invisible currency. While money changes hands, feelings determine value and drive decisions. This reveals the necessity of an emotional accounting system, a way to track, understand, and optimize the feelings that flow through your business. The system works in 3 steps. Recognize the dominant emotion in any money interaction. Name it precisely. Redirect it purposefully toward productive states like confidence or ease. Nelson, managing a downtown restaurant, applied this understanding with striking results. He noticed his staff's tension during rush hours created a ripple of anxiety that affected service and tips. He implemented pre-shift mood checks where employees could voice concerns and reset their emotional state. He taught simple techniques: deep breathing before approaching tables, replacing worried thoughts with grateful ones, treating difficult customers as opportunities to practice calm. The staff's transformed emotional state had tangible effects: smoother service flow, higher check averages, increased repeat visitors. The kitchen, once chaotic during peaks, became focused and steady. Servers moved with relaxed efficiency. Even during challenges, the team maintained emotional equilibrium. Customer complaints decreased while compliments and tips rose significantly. These examples illuminate a fundamental truth: your emotional state creates a field that either attracts or repels prosperity. Like a tuning fork, you broadcast a frequency that others unconsciously match. Master your emotional broadcast, and you master your market response. The practice presents a structured way to implement this understanding. For 7 days, maintain a feeling ledger. After each money interaction, whether receiving, spending, or discussing finances, note the dominant emotion present. Was there anxiety during bill payment? Confidence while quoting prices? Gratitude when receiving? Each morning, choose one specific emotion to amplify throughout the day. Perhaps confidence while discussing rates, or calm when checking accounts. Record how this intentional emotional stance affects your financial interactions and outcomes. This emotional accounting brings awareness to the invisible currents that shape your prosperity, allowing you to consciously cultivate states that attract rather than repel abundance. Chapter 19: The Alchemy of Self-Identity. Percy had worked as a convenience store clerk for 7 years, but in his mind, he was already a successful shop owner. Each morning he'd arrive 30 minutes early to study the store's operations, not as an employee, but through an owner's eyes. He began carrying a leather-bound notebook, meticulously recording customer patterns, inventory flows, and improvement ideas. He noticed things others missed: how the morning rush created bottlenecks at the register, which products sold best during different hours, and where displays could be optimized for better flow. Instead of merely restocking shelves, he analyzed product placement and profit margins. During his lunch breaks, Percy would walk to the local bank, not to make deposits as a clerk, but to build relationships as a future business owner. He opened a business savings account, even if it held only modest amounts. He dressed slightly better than his position required, choosing pressed shirts and polished shoes that reflected his internal image. The transformation wasn't just external. Percy shifted his language, carefully eliminating phrases like, "I just work here," or "I'll have to ask the manager." Instead, he began speaking with ownership. "I've noticed our customers prefer," or "I'm studying retail management to better serve our community." The core principle emerged: identity precedes reality. Success requires first inhabiting the inner world of your desired outcome before external circumstances align. This identity scaffolding process works through 4 key elements: small acts, daily behaviors that reflect your intended identity; language, words and phrases that reinforce your new self-concept; attire, external markers that support your internal image; accountability, relationships and commitments that stabilize the new identity. Agnes, who had previously succeeded as a part-time music teacher, applied this same principle when pursuing her dream of owning a music store. For 6 months before acquiring her shop, she lived as though she already owned it. She attended industry conferences, built relationships with suppliers, and studied successful music retailers. She transformed her home office into a mock store management center, complete with inventory spreadsheets and business plans. She scheduled her days as an owner would, allocating time for vendor calls and market research. When she finally found the perfect storefront, the transition felt natural. She had already been living as its owner. The practice: begin a 30-day identity rehearsal. Choose one daily habit that reflects your intended identity. like reviewing market trends each morning. Adopt one phrase of self-address that reinforces your new role, such as the owner of this business, I. Select one outward token, perhaps a professional accessory or tool that represents your emerging identity. Maintain these three elements consistently for 30 days, documenting how this aligned identity shapes your decisions and opportunities. Chapter 20. The Turning of the Tide. Walter stood in his small grain mill, observing the subtle changes that had transformed his business over the past year. What started as a simple noticing that local restaurants ordered specialty flours in predictable patterns had grown into something remarkable. Initially, he ground standard wheat flour, competing with larger operations on slim margins. But by paying attention to the questions chefs asked and the special requests they made, he discovered an untapped demand for ancient grains and custom blends. The shift began small. Walter started setting aside Thursdays for experimenting with different grains and blends. He documented each test, noting texture, performance, and chef feedback. When 3 restaurants consistently ordered his rye spelt blend, he recognized it as a signal, not just random luck, but a pattern worth pursuing. Instead of immediately expanding, Walter deepened his expertise with this single blend. He refined his process, improved consistency, and built relationships with reliable grain suppliers. Only when he had mastered this foundation did he introduce new varieties, one at a time, each validated by steady demand. The core principle emerged. True change happens not in dramatic leaps, but through careful attention to small signals and methodical scaling. The key lies in recognizing 3 types of confirmation: repeated requests, unsolicited referrals, and consistent cash flow. These signals, when properly read, indicate where to focus resources and energy. Nora's story echoed this wisdom in the modern retail space. As a small batch soap maker, she noticed one particular lavender blend receiving consistent reorders. Instead of expanding her product line, she focused entirely on perfecting this single offering. She studied the manufacturing process, streamlined production, and built reliable supply chains. Only after establishing a stable foundation with this one product did she consider expansion. She watched for specific metrics: reorder rates, customer feedback patterns, and profit margins. When these aligned, she knew she had found her core offering. The path of sustained change requires 3 elements: signal recognition, identifying genuine patterns amid noise, methodical scaling, building systems before growth, and relapse prevention, maintaining standards during expansion. The practice: commit to a 30-day turning audit. Each day, record 3 specific inflection signs in your business or career: patterns of demand, unexpected referrals, or consistent revenue streams. Double down on 2 supportive daily rituals that reinforce your progress, such as morning market review or evening gratitude practice. Weekly, share one concrete victory with a trusted witness who can help you recognize and validate genuine progress. This structured observation helps distinguish true tide turns from temporary surges, enabling confident, sustainable growth. Part 3. Mastery of the Money Current. Chapter 21. The Flow State of Wealth. Ernest sat at his piano, fingers hovering over the keys in the pre-dawn quiet. As a session musician for over 15 years, he had discovered that his best work, the recordings that brought steady referrals and repeat clients, emerged during specific windows of time when everything aligned perfectly. He learned to recognize the conditions that preceded these productive states: the stillness of early morning, a specific breathing pattern he'd developed, and the ritual of lighting a single candle beside his instrument. Rather than chase irregular gigs at all hours, Ernest built his entire schedule around protecting and maximizing these flow periods. His system was precise. He declined evening sessions, knowing they disrupted his morning rhythm. He maintained a consistent sleep schedule, ate at regular intervals, and created environmental cues that signaled to his nervous system it was time to perform. The results spoke for themselves. Clients began requesting him specifically, noting the ease and quality of his recordings. Frances, a graphic designer, discovered a similar truth when she noticed her best work emerge during uninterrupted 3-hour blocks in the afternoon. Initially, she scattered her schedule to accommodate every client request, but the quality of her work suffered. When she restructured her day to protect her peak creative hours, something shifted. She established clear boundaries, scheduling client calls only in the morning, and dedicated her afternoons to focused design work. She created a small ritual, arranging her desk, playing specific instrumental music, and taking 3 deep breaths before beginning. Within months, her portfolio strengthened, and high-quality clients sought her out specifically for her distinctive work. The key lay in understanding that flow states aren't random gifts, but predictable outcomes of aligned conditions. By identifying personal rhythms, creating supportive environments, and removing friction points, anyone can access these periods of effortless productivity more reliably. The science behind this approach reveals how the nervous system responds to consistent cues and patterns. When we align our work with our natural energy cycles and create clear environmental signals, we reduce the cognitive load required to enter productive states. Money follows this ease. Clients recognize and value work produced in flow. The practice: choose a daily flow anchor to implement over the next 2 weeks. Begin with a specific breath pattern, such as 4 counts in, 6 counts out, followed by a short ritual that signals your nervous system. It's time to work. Lighting a candle, arranging your workspace, or a brief meditation. Finally, identify and protect 1 specific hour each day for your most important work. Track how this consistent practice affects your energy, output, and the ease with which opportunities and income arrive. Chapter 22. The Endless Well. Edith stood in the back room of the Mountain View Food Co-op, surveying boxes of produce that would typically be discarded. After years of managing the small store, she had grown weary of the waste. One morning, inspiration struck. Instead of throwing away items approaching their sell-by date, she began setting them aside for a new community sharing program. She established simple rules. Members could take what they needed and contribute what they could. The system began modestly: a few boxes of bruised apples, day-old bread, and excess vegetables. But something unexpected happened. As word spread, the sharing table became a hub of exchange. Members who took surplus food one week would return with homemade preserves or garden harvests the next. The co-op's energy shifted. Rather than seeing excess as waste, the community began viewing it as a resource to be circulated. Regular customers started planning their shopping around sharing days, bringing their own surplus to contribute. The store's sales actually increased as the sharing program grew, with members feeling more connected to the co-op's mission. Lloyd, a local baker, witnessed this principle in action when he started giving away unsold loaves to neighboring businesses at day's end. Initially concerned about lost revenue, he discovered that recipients often returned with coffee, produce, or new customer referrals. One restaurant owner became a regular bulk purchaser after experiencing the quality of his bread through these shared loaves. The more he gave, the more pathways of return opened up. His reputation spread through the neighborhood, and morning lines grew longer. The simple act of sharing created a web of reciprocal relationships that supported his business more reliably than tight-fisted practices ever had. These stories reveal a fundamental truth about abundance. It behaves more like a river than a reservoir. Money and resources flow most freely when they're allowed to circulate. Hoarding creates stagnation, while mindful sharing opens channels for replenishment. The key lies in creating structured systems for circulation. This means establishing regular giving practices, clear reinvestment protocols, and ways to track how generosity returns in unexpected forms. It's not about reckless giving, but rather strategic generosity that strengthens community bonds and opens new pathways for resources to flow. The practice: choose one weekly generosity action to maintain for 4 weeks. This could be sharing expertise, resources, or connections. Keep a simple log noting what you give and what returns, including unexpected forms of abundance like new relationships or opportunities. Watch how your relationship with supply shifts as you prove that giving creates space for receiving. Remember, the goal isn't to track returns in order to guarantee them, but to gather evidence that challenges scarcity thinking. Let each week's experience inform and refine your understanding of how circulation supports sustained abundance. Chapter 23. The Law of Elegant Expansion. Viola sat at her drafting table, carefully examining the intricate floral pattern she'd spent months perfecting. As an independent textile designer, she'd watched colleagues burn out chasing rapid growth, taking on too many clients too quickly. She chose a different path, licensing one pattern at a time, ensuring each design maintained its artistic integrity before moving to the next. Her first pattern, a delicate arrangement of wildflowers, caught the attention of a small fabric manufacturer. Instead of immediately pushing for more contracts, she focused on perfecting the licensing process with this single client. She documented every step, created quality control checkpoints, and built relationships with the production team. Only when this system ran smoothly did she consider expanding. This measured approach paid dividends. As her reputation for reliability grew, larger manufacturers approached her. Rather than jumping at every opportunity, she developed a careful evaluation process. Each new license needed to align with her core aesthetic and manufacturing standards. She added support staff strategically, first a part-time assistant to handle administrative tasks, then a technical illustrator to help with pattern variations. Otis, the hardware store owner, demonstrated similar wisdom in his expansion. When demand grew beyond his capacity, he resisted the urge to rapidly stock new products or open additional locations. Instead, he focused on systematizing his existing operation. He trained 2 trusted employees in his inventory management system, delegated specific responsibilities, and documented core processes. This groundwork allowed him to later open a second location without compromising the personalized service that had built his reputation. The key to sustainable scaling lies in understanding your current capacity limits and methodically expanding them. This requires regular audits of your time, energy, and resources. Before any expansion, assess 3 crucial areas: systems, what processes can be documented and replicated; support, what tasks can be delegated; and simplification, what can be streamlined or eliminated. Growth should feel like a natural evolution, not a forced march. Each expansion step needs adequate margin, time, and resources to handle unexpected challenges. This might mean taking twice as long as you think you need, building redundancy into systems, or maintaining financial buffers. The practice: choose one area of your work or business that feels constrained. Take a single capacity doubling step this week through either delegation, systematization, or simplification. Document the impact on your energy and workflow. Focus on how this change affects your sense of ease rather than just productivity metrics. Chapter 24. The Energetic Architecture of Prosperity. Florence sat in her sun-filled studio, spreading out fabric swatches and material samples, not for a design project, but for what she called value mapping. Before presenting any interior design concepts, she first guided clients through an intensive process of understanding their deeper relationship with space and prosperity. "I used to rush straight into color schemes and furniture layouts," she explained to her apprentice. "But I noticed the most successful projects started with understanding how clients viewed themselves in relation to abundance." She developed a method where clients arranged material samples to represent their ideal relationship with wealth, success, and living space. This approach transformed her business. Instead of pursuing every potential client, she attracted those who resonated with her philosophy of intentional design. Her projects became more profitable, and clients implemented her suggestions more readily because they aligned with their internal values. Samuel, a contractor who had been struggling with unprofitable projects, learned from Florence's method. After losing a major contract, instead of immediately chasing new work, he took time to rebuild his business from the inside out. He wrote down his non-negotiable values, defined his ideal project scope, and created systems that reflected his worth. He drafted new contract templates that honored his expertise and implemented a pricing structure that reflected the true value of his work. Within 6 months, Samuel's rebuilt business attracted clients who appreciated quality craftsmanship and were willing to pay for it. His internal clarity created external results. Projects flowed more smoothly, payments arrived on time, and referrals increased naturally. The key to sustaining wealth lies not in external strategies alone, but in building an internal architecture that can hold and manage increasing abundance. This requires 3 elements: belief scaffolds, the thoughts and convictions that support growth; emotional baselines, the feeling states that attract and maintain prosperity; and structural supports, the practical systems that manage and protect wealth. Creating this architecture begins with honest self-assessment. What beliefs currently shape your relationship with money? What emotional states do you associate with financial success? What practical structures do you have in place to support wealth? The practice. This weekend, write a 1-page prosperity blueprint. Include 3 clear identity statements that define who you are becoming. Name the primary emotion you choose to cultivate around money, and outline 2 specific structural supports you will implement, such as a dedicated savings plan or a new client onboarding system. This document becomes your energetic architecture, a template for building sustainable wealth. Chapter 25. The Sovereign of Your Inner Kingdom. In the quiet hours before the library opened, Judith sat at her desk, reviewing the day's budget allocations with deliberate attention. She hadn't always approached financial decisions this way. For years, she'd operated reactively, saying yes to every department request and depleting resources before month's end. The turning point came when she instituted what she called her morning throne room. 15 minutes of reviewing upcoming decisions and affirming her role as sovereign steward of the library's resources. Each morning, she'd ask herself, what serves the highest good of our community? This simple ritual transformed her relationship with money and authority. Within months, the library's finances stabilized. She learned to say no to impulse purchases and yes to strategic investments. When the children's department requested new tablets instead of immediately agreeing, she took 24 hours to evaluate the proposal against her established criteria. This thoughtful approach led to a better solution, partnering with a local tech company for donated devices. Raymond, a food truck owner, faced similar challenges with reactive spending. Every supplier's special offer and every equipment upgrade suggestion sent him scrambling to make purchases, leaving his business cash poor. Inspired by a business mentor, he established his own daily sovereignty practice. Each morning, before opening his truck, Raymond would sit in the driver's seat and declare, "I am the rightful ruler of my business decisions." He reviewed his spending choices from the previous day and set clear intentions for the current one. This simple act of claiming his authority transformed his business operations. He began questioning every purchase, not from fear, but from sovereignty. "Does this serve my business's highest good?" became his standard. Within 3 months, his cash flow stabilized, and he found himself making clearer, more confident decisions about menu changes, pricing, and equipment investments. The power of sovereignty in money matters lies not in controlling every outcome, but in claiming full responsibility for each choice. When you establish daily decision protocols and honor your authority over financial choices, you shift from reactive to intentional spending. This isn't about perfect decisions, it's about conscious ones. The practice: for the next 2 weeks, perform a nightly sovereignty rite. Set aside 10 minutes before bed to, first, review all financial decisions made that day with neutral awareness. Second, identify any moments where you gave away your authority and mentally reclaim them with the phrase, "I choose differently now." Finally, set one clear intention for tomorrow's money choices, speaking it aloud as a sovereign decree. This ritual builds the muscle of financial authority and transforms your relationship with money from subject to ruler. Track how your sense of sovereignty grows stronger with each passing day. Chapter 26. The Wealth Oracle Within. Eunice sat at her desk, quietly observing the familiar flutter in her stomach as she reviewed a new client contract. After 15 years as a legal assistant, she had learned to recognize this sensation not as anxiety, but as valuable inner guidance. In the past, she would have ignored these subtle signals, pushing ahead with what seemed logical on paper. But experience had taught her differently. When that same flutter had appeared during contract negotiations last spring, instead of dismissing it, she had paused to investigate. The quiet voice within suggested requesting additional documentation. That simple act uncovered a crucial oversight that saved both parties significant complications. From that moment, Eunice began treating her intuitive signals with newfound respect. She developed a systematic approach to working with these inner nudges. Before every significant decision, she would pause for 30 seconds, placing her hand on her stomach and asking, "What do I notice?" She learned to distinguish between fear's constricting grip and intuition's gentle guidance. The results spoke for themselves: fewer complications, smoother processes, and an increasing flow of referrals from satisfied clients. Vernon's story provided another compelling example of intuition's practical power. As an accountant, he had built his career on numbers and logic. Yet when a persistent thought kept suggesting he reach out to a former colleague about a potential partnership, he decided to honor it despite having no rational reason to do so. He approached this intuitive signal methodically. First, he checked if the urge came from fear or genuine guidance by sitting quietly with it for 2 minutes. Then he tested the timing. Did the nudge strengthen or fade with patience? Finally, he took a small step, sending a simple email to reconnect. That single action, born from inner guidance, led to an unexpected partnership that transformed both their practices. The collaboration opened new markets neither had accessed alone, validating Vernon's decision to trust that quiet inner voice. The key to developing reliable intuition lies in creating a disciplined practice of listening and testing. This isn't about abandoning logic, it's about integrating inner wisdom with practical systems. Start with a 2-minute oracle check before financial decisions. Sit quietly, place your hand on your stomach and ask, "What do I notice?" Record the signals that arise without judgment. Learn to distinguish between fear's urgent push and intuition's steady knowing. Test small hunches with low-risk actions and document the results. Over time, this builds a personal evidence base for trusting your inner guidance system. The practice. Before making any financial decision this week, take 2 minutes for an intuitive check-in. Record one specific intuitive cue you chose to act on each day, noting both the signal and the outcome. Let this simple practice strengthen your connection to inner wisdom's quiet voice. Chapter 27. The Keeper of Currents. Maud had worked as a groundskeeper at the community gardens for 23 years, and through patient observation she discovered a truth that transformed her approach to both nature and finances. She noticed how the gardens operated in distinct cycles: spring's intensive planting, summer's steady maintenance, fall's harvest, and winter's essential rest. Initially, she struggled with the uneven income distribution across seasons. Spring and fall brought abundant work with new plantings and preparations, while winter saw minimal activity. But rather than fight against these natural rhythms, Maud learned to align her financial planning with them. She developed a system of seasonal envelopes, setting aside portions of peak season earnings to sustain through quieter periods. During busy months, she offered additional services like garden planning workshops and composting classes. In slower seasons, she focused on tool maintenance and advanced bookings for spring projects. This rhythm-based approach not only stabilized her income, but deepened her connection to natural cycles. Leonard's family hardware store told a similar story of cyclical wisdom. For years, the shop had struggled with unpredictable cash flow until Leonard began studying their sales patterns. He noticed how certain products peaked at specific times: garden tools in spring, fans in summer, weatherproofing materials in fall, and snow equipment in winter. Instead of maintaining the same inventory year-round, Leonard adjusted his stock and staffing to match these natural retail rhythms. He created a calendar of promotional events that aligned with seasonal needs, building up cash reserves during peak periods to sustain through slower months. This pattern-based approach transformed their struggling store into a stable community fixture. The secret to sustainable abundance lies in recognizing and respecting natural cycles. Just as a garden requires different care across seasons, financial flow follows its own rhythms. Success comes from matching your efforts to these natural patterns rather than forcing constant growth. Create a seasonal stewardship system by first identifying your personal and professional cycles. Map out your high energy and rest periods, peak income months, and quiet times. Then design supportive practices for each phase, building reserves during abundance, maintaining systems during steady periods, and allowing necessary rest during natural lulls. Establish maintenance rhythms that preserve flow, monthly account reviews, quarterly goal adjustments, and annual strategic planning. Like tending a garden, wealth requires regular care calibrated to each season's needs. The practice. Divide your next 12 months into 3 distinct cycles, noting the natural rhythms of your work and energy. For each cycle, assign one specific supportive ritual, perhaps a monthly savings transfer during high-income periods, a weekly systems check during maintenance phases, or a daily reflection practice during quieter times. This creates a natural rhythm that sustains long-term abundance. Chapter 28. The Symphony of Momentum. Ruby's small yoga studio had always been profitable, but it wasn't until she discovered the power of orchestration that it truly began to thrive. She noticed how different elements of her business, class schedules, instructor availability, student preferences, and marketing efforts, created either friction or flow depending on how well they synchronized. Instead of treating each component separately, Ruby began coordinating them like instruments in an orchestra. She aligned class times with natural energy peaks, meditation at dawn, power yoga at lunch, and restorative sessions in the evening. Marketing messages went out when engagement was highest, and instructor schedules were arranged to maximize their peak teaching hours. The results were immediate and profound. Attendance increased by 40% within 3 months, while operational stress decreased. Students reported feeling more supported by the intuitive schedule, and instructors appreciated the rhythm that respected their energy cycles. Henry's story provided another compelling example of orchestrated success. As an online course creator, he had struggled with sporadic launches that drained his energy and produced inconsistent results. Everything changed when he implemented a coordinated approach. Instead of random promotional pushes, Henry created a quarterly launch calendar that aligned his team's strengths. Content creation happened during their most creative morning hours. Customer support was staffed during peak inquiry times. Email sequences were timed to subscriber activity patterns. This orchestrated effort doubled his revenue while reducing team burnout. The key to powerful orchestration lies in recognizing that each element of your work, from personal energy to team dynamics to market rhythms, has its own natural cadence. Success comes from arranging these elements so they amplify rather than interfere with each other. The daily tune-up ritual becomes your conductor's baton, ensuring all elements remain in harmony. Like a morning symphony check, it aligns your mindset, emotional state, and actions into a coherent force. This isn't just about productivity. It's about creating resonance that naturally attracts and sustains success. The practice directs you to perform a morning tune-up of mindset, emotion, and one aligned action for 14 days to test orchestration effects. This simple ritual becomes the foundation for coordinated momentum, allowing you to experience firsthand how aligned elements create amplified results. Chapter 29: The Law of Overflow. Caroline's small bakery in a quiet neighborhood didn't just sell bread, it cultivated abundance. Each Sunday evening, she opened pre-orders for the week's artisanal loaves. Instead of anxiously wondering if she'd sell enough, this system created a foundation of certainty. But more than that, it built a community invested in her success. When I stopped worrying about scarcity, Caroline explained, I could focus on creating excellence. She discovered that having guaranteed orders allowed her to source better ingredients, experiment with new recipes, and maintain a calm presence that customers noticed. The pre-orders weren't just about managing inventory. They were about creating a field of abundance that attracted more opportunities. Her practice of setting aside a portion of each day's bakes for local food banks demonstrated this principle in action. Giving from fullness rather than fear changed everything, she noted. The regular donations created goodwill that returned in unexpected ways, from press coverage to catering referrals. Jasper's journey with his neighborhood hardware store offered another perspective on overflow thinking. Rather than immediately expanding when business picked up, he focused first on building inventory reserves and emergency funds. He improved systems and trained staff thoroughly before considering growth. When a prime location became available next door, Jasper's preparation meant he could act decisively. The expansion succeeded because it came from a position of overflow rather than stretch. Having reserves gave me confidence to make clear decisions, he reflected. I wasn't operating from desperation. The principle here is clear. Abundance flows most naturally when we first cultivate internal fullness. This means practicing gratitude for current resources, building reserves before taking risks, and creating systems that generate natural surplus. It's about establishing a foundation of enough before pursuing more. The overflow mindset shifts focus from scarcity-based accumulation to abundance-based circulation. Like a fountain that must first fill its own basin before spilling over to nourish its surroundings, sustainable prosperity requires internal fullness as a prerequisite to external expansion. Your practice invites engagement with this principle. List 5 areas where you already overflow, perhaps in skills, relationships, ideas, or resources, and express gratitude aloud for each night this week to seed external increase. This simple ritual acknowledges existing abundance while creating space for more to arrive. Chapter 30: The Eternal Stream. As the evening sun cast long shadows across her community garden, Edith watched neighbors exchanging homegrown vegetables for babysitting hours, carpentry skills for math tutoring, and occasional cash for needed services. What had started as her simple idea, a neighborhood skills exchange board at the local coffee shop, had blossomed into a self-sustaining microeconomy. Money is just one form of value that flows, Edith often said, tending to her herb garden while others traded around her. When we recognize all forms of abundance, we stop clutching and start circulating. Her philosophy was simple: abundance multiplied when shared freely through trusted channels. The garden itself embodied this principle. Those who couldn't pay in cash contributed labor or skills. Those with means sponsored seedlings and tools. Knowledge passed freely between experienced gardeners and newcomers. Every season, the cycle renewed itself with greater vitality. Martin, a retired accountant, took these lessons home to his 3 children. Instead of simply leaving them an inheritance, he taught them the principles of sustainable wealth creation. Each child received a small sum to steward, along with clear guidance on circulation versus hoarding. "Watch what grows when you plant it wisely," he told them, encouraging regular giving, conscious investing, and attention to community needs. Within 5 years, each child had not only multiplied their initial sum but had created value streams that benefited others. His daughter started a scholarship fund, his eldest son launched a zero-interest community lending circle, and his youngest developed a youth entrepreneurship program. The core truth revealed through these stories is that wealth, properly understood, is not a finite resource to be accumulated, but a living current meant to flow through well-built channels. By creating systems that circulate value, establishing rituals that maintain clarity, and sending signals that invite aligned opportunities, you build not just personal prosperity, but lasting abundance that outlives you. True mastery of the money current isn't about reaching a destination, it's about becoming a lifetime steward of flow. This requires daily recommitment, regular system maintenance, and conscious evolution of your practices as life changes. But most importantly, it asks for your sacred word to partner with this eternal stream. Your practice calls you to craft and commit to a 30-word lifetime wealth vow, speaking it aloud each morning for 30 days. This vow becomes your covenant with the current, anchoring your role as a conscious conductor of abundance's endless flow. Conclusion. The journey through this work has revealed a fundamental truth. The money current flows not as a mechanical system, but as a living stream seeking well-prepared channels. Through stories of everyday alchemists like Walter the longshoreman, Edith the community builder, and countless others, we've witnessed how this current responds to 3 key alignments. First came perception, learning to see the river beneath our feet. Those who shifted from chasing to noticing discovered abundant flows already present in their lives. They developed the art of recognition, training their eyes to spot patterns and opportunities others missed. Next emerged practice, the daily rituals and responses that opened their channels to receive. Through small, consistent actions, they built evidence of the current's reliability. Each acceptance, each boundary set, each moment of patient trust strengthened their partnership with prosperity's flow. Finally, infrastructure took shape, the systems and structures that sustained their connection to abundance. They learned to build not just for immediate gain, but for lasting stewardship, creating channels that could carry increasing flows while maintaining integrity. Yet mastery of this current isn't a destination, but an ongoing dance. It asks for continued attention, regular refinement, and humble recognition that we are both vessels and architects of its flow. The work is never truly complete. It simply evolves as we grow in our capacity to conduct and steward larger currents. To seal this understanding, a simple daily practice emerges. Notice. Pause 3 times daily to recognize one sign of abundance, however small. Nourish. Perform one action that strengthens your channel. A boundary set, a system improved, a signal clarified. Steward. Make one choice that honors the current's flow, a conscious investment, a generous act, a moment of gratitude. Let your own experiments become ongoing proof. Test these principles in small ways, gather evidence through action, and let results inform your next steps. Remember that each setback offers refinement, each success invites expansion, and both serve the deeper learning. As you move through your days, let this simple refrain anchor your partnership with prosperity. I tune, I build, I receive, and I steward. This is not a mantra of manifestation, but a reminder of relationship, your sacred role as conductor and keeper of the eternal stream.
If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.